I'm talking with my guy, Drew DeArmond of Talkin' Ball, Huntsville 97.7 ESPN, also contributor, writer for Tider Insider. We're going to get a bold prediction from you here in just a moment, but I do want to ask how much does losing closely? Now, we talked in another video about 10 guys going to the NFL, and there's a lot of others that have transferred. So it's not all about last year, but I mean, it felt like, as a neutral, watching that game, Alabama felt like they had the game won a time or two, and they were so close to knocking off Michigan. Then you'd like to think that if they'd have made the championship, they probably can beat Washington just based on Jimmy's and Joe's and the trenches, which maybe would have been a tad bit of irony bringing Kalen DeBoer in shortly after. But how much do you think being so close last year impacts this team, or do you not buy that? Do you not think that really matters?
I think it matters because you've got your quarterback back who now has skins on the wall, and in my opinion, and following Nick Saban for 17 years, he came the furthest of any quarterback that I've seen because we all remember how he started. He really struggled against Texas, and of course, Texas ended up being one of the four best teams in the country. But it was not a pretty performance. Alabama lost by double digits in Bryant Denny Stadium, which doesn't happen often, and so and then we remember the next week he was, it wasn't publicized a lot in the media, but he was basically he was sat/suspended for that game because they wanted to see, they wanted to give Tyler Buckner a chance, even Ty Simpson, and they wanted to see how he responded after not playing well. They felt like that, look, we want to see if Jalen Milroe is really the guy. How is he going to respond to sitting? Is he going to be a great leader? Is he going to, step up, and be there for his teammates? If his teammates, how are they going to play? Could Buckner be the answer? Could even Ty Simpson be the answer? If one of them separates, maybe this is the direction we need to go. Alabama was at a fork in the road in the season that early. And you remember, it was a USF team that wasn't very good. Now, they ended up going to a bowl game, but again, not a lot of success in the last few years. It was an ugly game late in the third quarter. Into the fourth quarter, it's 3-3 before Alabama finally scores a touchdown late with Ty Simpson directing it. And I thought at the time Ty did enough to get a start. But obviously, Jalen Milroe responded as a leader. They gave him another chance to play QB. He led Alabama, I thought, to that huge win over Ole Miss, which was, I think, gave Jalen Milroe a lot of confidence. And I just give Milroe credit for the way he responded. I mean, he could have hung his head. He did not. He realized that that Buckner and Ty Simpson weren't ready. I think everybody saw that, weren't completely ready, and he took the reins and ran with it and got better. He and Tommy Rees got on the same page, and I thought he developed into a playmaker at the quarterback position. Was it pretty all the time? No, but again, he had not played much. He'd only had maybe one start in his career, and that was due to injury to Bryce Young the year before when he played against Texas A&M. And so what I'm fascinated to see now is under this new coaching staff, we saw as an offensive coordinator and then as a head coach, first an offensive coordinator at Indiana and then the head coach at Washington, what Kalen DeBoer did with Michael Penix, who was not a five-star prospect, not even as highly rated as a guy like Jalen Milroe coming out of high school. But in their system and the way they coached and developed, they developed him into a Heisman candidate and a first-round draft choice. And Jalen Milroe, he's one of the 2 to 3 fastest guys on the football team. He can run under a 4.4. He's built like a tank. He's 6'2", 225 pounds. But his key for him is the neck up stuff, being able to process, get rid of the ball quicker, throw it with accuracy and anticipation. He can certainly throw the deep ball. He proved that last year. But what I'm interested in with Kalen DeBoer and Nick Sheridan and Chris Capellic, the new offensive line coach, is the system they're going to surround Milroe, can they take him to the next level? Because let's be honest, we know the climate we're in. Milroe could have gone in the portal after the coaching change. Some of his teammates did. He could have left. He would have had interest with the success he had at Alabama. Or he could have turned pro, but I don't think he liked the feedback he got. I think he felt like he had more developing to do. And people forget, too, he's just a redshirt junior. He actually has 2 years of eligibility. But I think he understands that this is his money year coming up, that if he's going to become an NFL prospect, it's going to be Kalen DeBoer, Nick Sheridan, and this staff that can do that for him. But I will say, iron sharpens iron, and another guy that's really improved since this coaching change, and I think really benefited, is Ty Simpson. He's a former 5-star recruit. I don't think he was emotionally and mentally ready to be the starter last year as a redshirt freshman. He did show some flashes, and I think he really had a solid spring. And I think he's putting pressure on Milroe. But Milroe is without a doubt a leader on this team. He had his feet and hands put over at Denny Chimes as a captain, so he's a returning captain at Alabama. The only thing that's going to keep him out of the lineup as a starter is an injury. And so, but what I'm interested in is how far can he come in the next 6 months? We just mentioned 6 months because Kalen DeBoer's been on campus about that long. But in the next 6 months, when you're talking about getting through another season, can Jalen Milroe become a pro prospect? If he does, then I think Alabama's going to be near the top of the SEC, TJ, and I think they're going to be in the playoff with a chance to win a national championship. I don't think there's any question because I think they have the infrastructure offensively. I think that the tools are there, especially with Caden Proctor. That was another great sign with Caden Proctor coming back to this program and believing in it enough to come back from Iowa. I think the offensive line, you've got if they can figure right tackle out, which could be a young player like a redshirt freshman like Wilkin Formby. They've got the pillars at guard with Tyler Booker and Jaden Roberts, who I think could be the best combo in college football. Parker Brailsford that they brought over from Washington at center. Those pieces are there, but they've just got to figure the offensive tackle spot out. But if they do, they have the receivers. I think with the returning guys and the transfer of Jeremy Bernard from Washington, because that's the thing too. Washington, their top 3 receivers, they had a first rounder, a second rounder, a third rounder. That 4th receiver came to Alabama, had a huge spring game. And so I'm just really going to be interested to see this new style of offense and how it translates with the personnel that's returned, which I think is good enough for them to be one of the best offenses in college football.
There are no easy schedules in the SEC. Maybe Missouri's this year, which
Right.
even then they got to travel to Tuscaloosa. But when you look at the difficulty of schedules, I don't necessarily know that this is on the level of like a UF's or a South Carolina's. I think it's pretty navigatable. I don't know if I'm reading that wrong. I even with the early trip to Wisconsin, I still, Alabama should still be a double-digit favorite unless something crazy has happened to start the season. They're going to be more talented than every team they take on, except for maybe one, and that team has to come to Bryant-Denny in week 4. I think the schedule is navigatable. Again, on the road at Tennessee, at LSU, at Oklahoma, and going on the road in the SEC is, never the easiest thing. But still teams that they should probably beat, all 3 of them. Again, late season injuries or, how teams are playing late certainly will matter. I think the schedule sets up pretty well for Kalen DeBoer in his first year, considering, where it ranks among other SEC schedules.
Well, I think it's manageable, but it's difficult. I do think they should start 3-0, even though I respect Luke Fickell and what he's trying to do at Wisconsin. But I agree with you. I think that's a game Alabama should win. And, of course, when you're talking about Western Kentucky and South Florida, those should be 2 wins. Then you get a week off, and then the litmus test is going to be Georgia because Georgia will probably be the preseason pick to win the SEC and probably number 1 in the country. And we know that the biggest win for Alabama last year was beating the Dogs in the SEC championship game. And because UGA looked like they were on a collision course with history to win 3 in a row. I think they'd won 29 in a row, and Alabama snapped that. So we're going to see really quickly how Kalen DeBoer's Alabama matches up with Kirby Smart's, because Kirby is basically still a carbon copy of what Nick Saban was doing at Alabama. And so the way he stylistically matches up with Kirby is going to be fascinating. Now, he does some things that have given Kirby trouble in the past, which is spread the ball out, throw it vertically down the field, make a lot of big plays, and we'll see what they can do. But the thing is, I think the biggest question for Alabama really isn't offense for me, TJ. It's defensively.
Yeah.
Because Nick Saban, we know he had different coordinators, And I thought the best one was Jeremy Pruitt, followed closely by Kirby Smart. But the system never really changed. Now, the way they recruited did a little bit personnel wise, but it was the same system for 17 years defensively. Extremely complicated, an NFL system. Now it's going to be Kane Womack doing it. He's going to do it. It's still going to be 4-2-5 principles, but it's going to be a little bit different. And the secondary is very green, very talented. They've got young guys that are five-star talents like Jalen Mbakwe, Zay Mincy, Red Morgan, and Red is not a five-star, but I think he has that much talent. But again, they only have one guy that played back, and that's Malachi Moore. Everybody else, they got Damani Jackson out of the portal and Keon Sabb, but everybody else is green. So it's going to depend on how that secondary evolves. They've got some talent. Tim Smith back, along the defensive line. Tim Keenan. But again, they lost Justin Aboigbe. They've got Deontay Lawson back, Jihad Campbell, but they lost some linebackers. Two really good pass rushers, Dallas Turner, Chris Braswell. So to me, filling the holes defensively and having a new system, that's the biggest question because you're going to have to be good defensively in this SEC. I thought Washington was good defensively, but not great. And ultimately, they nearly won the national title, but they couldn't quite close the deal. But how good is Alabama? Are they going to lose their edge defensively with a new head coach and new staff? I don't think so. I think they'll be able to recruit well enough to still be good. And I think Kane Womack, people don't give him enough credit. I mean, he was a head coach at South Alabama. They had a very competitive program. I think he had a top 20 defense nationally. And now he'll be able to recruit, an even better caliber of talent than he had at Indiana with Kalen DeBoer when they coached together, and then that he had at South Alabama. So I think Alabama is going to be good defensively, but it's still one of those things you got to see it. And to me, one of the first amen corners is going to be that game against Georgia. But even then, as you talked about, that's not going to eliminate Alabama from playoff contention. The stretch of the season that's going to define Alabama is going to be Missouri, because how good is Mizzou going to be? Can they replicate what they did a year ago? And you pointed out they do have an easy schedule comparatively for an SEC school, even though that game will be in Tuscaloosa. Then you get your second off week, and then you have at LSU, which is never easy. It was never easy for Coach Saban. And then instead of the usual Mercer before Auburn, because of the expansion of this league, you got to go to Norman, Oklahoma. Now, I think Oklahoma is one of the polarizing teams because while I think Texas can be a top 3 or 4 team in the league, I really don't know what to think of Oklahoma under Brent Venables. They were a lot better last year, but this is the SEC. I sort of have them toward the middle. We're talking 6, 7, 8, but you're still going to Norman. And that's a dangerous game that you have a week before your biggest rival coming to Tuscaloosa and Auburn.
I'm going to get a bold prediction from you, but Drew, where can people follow you? Where can they find your work?
They can find me at DrewD977 ESPN on X. I certainly have great conversation on there. They can find us at 977ESPN.com. I have a morning show, 7 to 9 a.m. with Scott Tyson talking ball. They can certainly listen to that. If you missed that, we have it on our website and on our SoundCloud page. And certainly they can, I do contribute to TiderInsider.com. Rodney Orr's been going strong since 1996. And that's the way you can connect with me. And always enjoy, talking some football. We appreciate the opportunity to talk some Alabama because it's a season of anticipation, but still some unknowns. And we'll see, how the Crimson Tide do in year one under Kalen DeBoer.
What is your boldest prediction, your hottest take? Certainly not going to get clipped up if you're wrong or anything like that. But no, hot take, you're allowed to be wrong on this one. But what's your hot take for the team this year?
I think Alabama is back in the college football playoff, and I'm going to show some faith in the development of Jalen Milroe because he came further last year than I ever thought he would. I believe in Kalen DeBoer's ability because I think TJ, like guys like Gus Malzahn, Lane Kiffin, I think they're play callers. But I think that Kalen DeBoer is almost like, except he's a better version of Lincoln Riley because Lincoln – I don't think Kalen DeBoer is going to Lincoln's biggest issue to me, he can develop QBs. He does a great job. He's had so many win the Heisman, become high draft picks, starters in the NFL. But I think he neglected the defensive side of the ball. I don't think Kalen DeBoer does that. I think he's more well-rounded. But I think he will develop Jalen Milroe into a first or second round draft pick. Alabama will be in the college football playoff with a chance to and at least make the Final Four with a shot to win the national championship in year one under Kalen DeBoer.
I like it. I like it. We talked a little bit about that transition to Kalen DeBoer. If you missed that, do me a favor and click on the screen right now to check it out.